on the
I
spot.
actually have three.
You can't keep at
I
it.
have a mouthful. Can we put on a future agenda, school street traffic?
Pass that down to Mike. Full street what?
Tom,
Traffic.
Thank you.
you have a note for that, Tom?
Yep.
The other thing was just a suggestion that someone approached me with about posting, like on Front Porch Forum, a link to minutes of the select board meeting, maybe even
After the
agenda. Yeah, minutes after the meeting. Maybe an agenda before, I guess Morrisville does this.
Does the agenda get on before the meeting?
I haven't seen the agenda on Front Porch.
That Lydia's supposed to be doing that, so I'll just check in and make sure that she's supposed to copy and paste it in and she got something.
Okay,
So we'll get on.
all right. Just to kind of keep us up in front of folks.
Do you want the, and then do you want the minute on after?
There could be a copy paste, a link for past minutes. Please visit this link,
Yeah.
you know, there's on the agenda, so I'm fine with that.
I was not paying attention. You want to have a link to put in the agendas to the minutes?
Not the
no.
agenda, on Front Porch Forum, just a link to show
Oh,
where they can find
take
past
people to
minutes.
Wonderful. Back here.
Heck of an idea, but,
All I gotta do is go down with it.
Just easier to find that than
you
the
had,
layers of the website.
Yep.
Okay.
you had a third one.
No, that was, my concern was that I was talking with most.
What do you have for an issue or concern, Mark?
I'm just, a couple people have asked me what's going on with the ice rink. Do we have any knowledge of what's going on with the ice rink?
I know that, the village was supposed to send a letter to Evan, myself, and Vermont, which hasn't been received yet, to my knowledge. And Vermont, I think it's just kind of on hold. He's done the rink for 8 years, and this year there was an issue with while he was filling it, and I don't think he's come back to refill
I think you were, came to our last meeting and said, given the time of year and certain constraints, he wouldn't be able to do it this year, but he's hoping to have it off last year. That's going from memory, which is dangerous.
It's just really nice and cold lately.
it. It'd be perfect ice weather.
There's a lot of good ice. in town.
Not so much today, but
Yeah.
Probably the ice rink this year is good.
Any other
Down the line.
issues or concerns from the board? Hearing none. I don't see Justin on yet. Did you hear back from him?
He just texted, thank you, I'm not, the announcement isn't ready.
Okay. So we will continue on. Next item up is consent agenda, for the public. Under the currently under the consent agenda is consider approval of minutes for December 2nd, January 3rd, January 9th, January 13th, January 20th, and January 27th. That's item A. Item B is approve and adjust certificate of highway mileage for 2025, and item C is approve the bio application for Palmer Family LLC at 115 Ward Main West.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve A and B of the consent agenda, holding out C for further discussion.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I was gonna ask questions about B as well.
Ask them. We're under further discussion.
Okay, so I think I understood what your report said. I was a little bit unclear about, so it was Town Highway 31, that's, it comes down through the
Like patch road.
yeah, it comes down through, but it came down through the barnyard of Tim Sullivan's
Yeah,
grandmother's place.
I'm forgetting the name.
Is that
Cunningham, yeah.
where, near the Hoag Road? that side of it.
Yeah,
So I'll show you. This is the email, I think I forwarded it, gave everything, and it had all the pictures. This is the result of the GIS thing that the state does. And what they did is they found that our AOT highway map, and they overlay it on photos, doesn't match where the actual road was. And the reason was at that end, at the, where it meets 100C, is the state put up guardrails. And so people kind of chose their own, choose their own adventure and ended up hooking into 100C lower down by closer to Hoag Road. And so that's the class 4 section, but people are just kind of using it off. And so this is, if you guys want to pass that around, you can see the yellow is the road that people are using, but the red is the AOT highway map. And so that adjustment is that difference in class 4 mileage. So between that and then the point at which the 3 to 4 changed at a different measurement. So there was a reduction in class 4 mileage and an increase in class 3 mileage. The increase is great for us because it means more state highway aid. The reduction is kind of in there.
so the road that goes out to the Cunningham Farm, is that on the map as class 3 or class 4 or?
If you
Not
look
at all.
at, I would look at this.
That isn't clarifying.
So the red is what is our actual highway map, highway road.
It's the class 4 section.
Yeah,
It doesn't have the Cunningham Farm on it. It's
Isn't
just
that-
a little,
see, the Cunningham Farm is over by Hoag, isn't it? Or is it further up?
I don't know.
I would pass it over.
It's before, it's at the base of the hill,
Yeah,
it's at the
Right.
base of the hill.
It's a blurry farm if it's actually there.
Yeah, it's,
so it's a pretty extensive email with a lot of photos. That's why I sent out that other one to try to look at it separately from the packet. But this has been going on for a couple of months where they keep going back and forth, and weren't really sure what the problem was. And one adjustment was on the other end of Patch Road formerly it was a Y, and then it's been corrected to a T, so that changed our mileage. And the point, it kind of drives through where the class 3 ends, there's a house and a barn, and set the side of the road. The town only kept mileage to the barnyard, but the actual mileage is passed. And so,
So Duncan,
I mean, part of the reason I asked the question is a number of years ago, the Cunninghams through Tim Sullivan asked to turn Town Highway 31, where it goes through the farmyard, into a pet road. And the select board agreed to do that, agreed to make that a pet road. And at the time, that was clearly shown.
so if you flip through those photos, there's another picture with the farm house on one side and the barn on the other side. I don't have the local knowledge and I thought that's good. But if you keep flipping through that email, there's this other photo.
and Duncan, I think that Tim bought Ruby Hunter's house to be able to close that road off. Because they couldn't exactly throw it up without owning both sides of it. Rosemary's shaking her head.
It never got, well, it didn't never officially got thrown up by
Looks like
the
one,
town.
but Tim did buy that house.
With the idea in mind that gave him surrounding that road in a way that maybe he could throw it up.
Well,
I don't know.
if that was the intent, it never got followed through on because
Yes. Yeah,
it's still, to my knowledge, still a class 4 road. It would have had to gone. You know what the process is for
I know.
class 4 roads. You'd have had to go through that process.
Well, I know how to make it into a class 3. I don't know how to take it from class 3 back. Or-
Well, it's the same, it requires
Yeah.
a public hearing and the whole
Yeah.
9 yards and never having been done.
I remember the tent part of it.
Yeah, I remember the town highway 31 was turned, the select board agreed to make it a pet road, and that was at Tim's request.
But Tim also did buy that other property.
Yeah, the Hunter.
Beyond the gate.
Mhm.
I don't know what the gate was.
Yeah, it was like 7 acres of land.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
So maybe there's more than one, I mean. Town Highway 31. I just don't. This second page shows. Town Highway 31 going between. You know, the barn and the house, which I think is right. I don't know if this. I don't know what this other one is.
Jason is available for questions. You want me to call
Is this a showstopper for
You think
tonight?
he's gonna have
I
a
don't. have
better
this-
idea?
I
Well,
was-
it's a question
I
of
was gonna
whether we
ask-
sign, it's a question of whether we sign off on the. I think if we sign off on the highway certificate, we're agreeing that that's the layout, and I'm not prepared to do it. at this point in time without further research.
And as I recall, part of Tim's motivation was that it was snowmobile trail at one time, and he wasn't all fired up about having it come between the house and the barn. Come down Pass Road.
I think that's right, yeah.
Did a snowmobile or ATVs.
Yeah. Now they just come down Hawaii. But anyways, we're here and there.
At this point,
We need more clarification.
well, I'm gonna call the motion and the board can decide. It's
So
good.
Mike's original motion was to do A and B by consent.
Yep, and he
Yours
hasn't
second.
pulled it, and the seconder hasn't pulled his second, so. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Nay.
Nay.
Peter's voting against his own second.
That will be the first time. You get 2 more years, right?
Yeah, I think.
Unless somebody. else-
So,
Right.
if we're pulling B out. I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item A.
I make that motion.
All right. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor, just the minutes, yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so my read on the board is they want some more information on highway mileage certificate. Are we? They want that clarified, who,
Yeah, and there is. Presumably, there exists somewhere still a file on Town Highway 31. The request to make it a pent road. And I think that would have all kinds of information in it related to, you know, its classification and all that good stuff.
Rosemary, will you maybe sit down with Jason and I and kind of try, you just have a break.
okay. Now we're at. Consent agenda item C, which is approval of the buyout application.
Can we also make absolutely sure, we probably already done this, but can we make absolutely sure that Lenway Lane is class 3 all the way up to Lenway's?
I think you verified that last time, but yeah, we should.
Yeah,
I think we picked that up 2 years ago.
and then one question I have is, our certificate of highway mileage is due. Do you want me to just? We can just deal with this issue, and then we'll just, next year, we'll sign that as it changes. Is it okay if I submit the last one that we had signed for this year? The only reason I didn't is because we had these emails going back and forth with the state as possible changes. I can just submit this is gonna be our highway, this is how we get paid for state aid. And then in a year, we'll make adjustments if needed or not make adjustments if needed. Are you okay with that? And that gives us time to do the research.
We did already sign that copy. That's not the
And it's
amendment.
not gonna make very, well, it's,
Peanuts.
Huh?
yeah.
I didn't sign-
You didn't sign the original
I
one?
don't think. Maybe I did.
The 3/4
Oh,
members.
there's Duncan.
Is it?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, that was forever ago.
We told you something else.
Well,
must
that
be it.
holds up that.
Tom asked a specific question. I'm okay with that as long as we're not losing sight.
Could you just
And
send
the
along
request, I
a
didn't know.
memo with the,
With this,
with the thing saying we're still researching
absolutely.
some of these other issues?
Okay,
She didn't turn into a showstopper.
Agenda item C was left out of both motions, and that is approval of buyout application for the Palmer family. How would the board like to handle this?
My big concern is brownfield on this. And liability for the town if there's any hazardous material found,
The garage, you mean?
yeah, or any of the property.
Would you entertain a motion to approve with contingencies?
I'd rather not approve anything, to tell you the truth, until it's all figured out.
I'll make the motion to approve the buyout application from the final and
Josh did say he wanted to come down and talk about this. The texting and get him on the phone. He has two reservations. One was brownfields, one was parking for Community National Bank. And I did some research. Want me to tell you about that now or?
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
What was the motion?
to approve the
Approve.
buyout
Martin made a
application.
motion to approve. If the motion's gonna die for lack of a second, that's fine, but
Can we still discuss?
I don't want a second or this to die and then can fill us in.
Your motion contained no conditions, just.
Yeah,
just-
No conditions, straight up
Approval
approval.
of the buyout.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Can you tell us what your research is, Tom?
Yes, so the last motion 2 weeks ago was to approve with the flood administrator's approval. He had two concerns. One was the potential for brownfields. Two was parking for Community National Bank as driving business. I spoke with Vermont Emergency Management today, they have a mitigation team, and the concern for brownfields is that this is not coverable by the buyout if indeed there was contamination found, and funding needs to be sorted out. The town is voluntary though, until the transfer happens. So as this buyout process moves along, at any time until the date of the transfer, we can pull out. So it was recommended that we move forward with the buyout, so they don't miss this opportunity, because there's a timeline on these current grant. And then I just sent an email today to Seth and Melissa at LCPC with Vermont Emergency Management to try to sort out funding for A, the assessment to see if there is a brownfield, and B, if there's funding for if contamination is found. So that way the town could assume this land without any costs. But in that research, and I also spoke with Drew at the Palmer family. And he sent along the underground storage tank closure form that is in the packet for tonight, and pretty much it says it had a high hazard site number and it says closed next to it. So it's Palmer's understanding that the tanks have been removed and that the site's already been mitigated. The only way to do that is through some kind of assessment, and then to look forward for funding for that assessment. And then get it done, but not hold up the buyout process, because that's gonna take several years. And we can have the assessment done within that timeline and then pull out if need be, or move forward if need be, whatever the board chooses at that time.
I think we had a question from the public on this matter.
I think that actually Tom covered that. Did you end up talking to Community Bank?
It did, on the parking issue. So one of the restrictions for buyout is that you're not allowed to put in impervious surfaces or paved parking. But you are allowed to have gravel access roads, and so the best way to handle this situation is Community National Bank asks for parking and a way to access. They use that parking lot to get around their property as like a back entrance for access. So if we were to assume this property, they would ask that we give them, like, say, a 30-foot wide access road to get into the back of their building, which they could also use for parking, but it would have to be gravel. And I did look into subdividing that parcel, so could they do a quick subdivision to sell some land to Community National Bank as a parking lot? And because it's a special flood hazard area, it's not eligible for subdivision. So the only way this could move forward, and I spoke with Scott Myers this afternoon about it too, and he said that's correct. So The only way to retain that parking, if we do buyout, is to have it be an access road, a gravel access road, which would double as parking, and so it's making it widen for both travel and parking.
So there's no way to subdivide that, even if the town wanted to do that with them.
It does
Because
not-
if we change that into a park at all with the restrictions that FEMA has, I mean, there's gonna be, the only place to park is gonna be then on a, we create a gravel parkway wherever it's going to be. No way to subdivide that anyway.
No, it does not, because of our.
Well, we can create all the gravel parking lot we want.
That's right, it just can't be impervious.
Right.
You could do impervious concrete,
Absolutely.
Right,
it's a real thing.
just
Is it
not,
real-
yeah,
real
it's not
thing?
astroturf.
Pervious concrete to the whole thing.
Yeah, go down to the Echo Center.
So,
How would the board like to handle this?
I think we should, I'll make the motion that we approve the buyout application.
Can I just make a comment about the branches? I have no doubt that that's what VEM told you in a conversation with Seth Jensen from LCPC. I was under the impression that the process of going through the buyout, that if it was discovered that it was a brownfield site, that it could be mitigated. But VEM said no.
I spoke with Brian Eberhart, who's a consultant for Vermont Emergency Management, who handles.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Able to back out if need be from a future date. When we know more. Then I would support the motion I sent.
Okay,
In my thinking is that, okay. If we don't move forward with this and get this, and they lose this, what are they, what's gonna happen?
Right. Yes.
They're gonna tear that building down. Maybe they'll stop paying taxes on it, it'll be ours anyways. You know, I think this is
but
the
there would be
best.
no strings on it, happen that way.
There could still be a brownfield,
It's, you'd be still be around.
could be our brownfield,
Yeah.
which is what we're concerned about. So I think this is a more rational way to go about it. To keep it, and in the long haul, I am hopeful that Honolulu gets a bag of money enough to say, hey, maybe we can put a store at light industrial park. You know, it'll make putting a store in town more viable, let's put it like that. So I'm trying to think farther down the road. If I were them, we say no, they say, okay, it's your building. You know, you deal with it. It won't be the first time somebody's done that in town. So, I think this is the best option.
Charles?
Wasn't there a discussion at one point where Farmelo said that he would turn it over to the town very inexpensively? And in regards to what Mark just said, has anybody actually approached him and said, look, we would, you know, work a deal with you where we would give you some of the property, or, you know, make a deal with you in regards to some property in the industrial park? Because if we do that, then we have more leeway to build other structures on there that would be, you know, flood proof, but at the same time would be more resilient than what they're going to allow us to put in.
The thing is, Charlie, is that they're probably looking at millions of dollars of buyout.
Well, I thought they were assessed for 1.2.
And they'll get 1.2 out, but they'll get more than that. But
The
that's
way the
speculation.
buyouts are, it's the value of the property the day before the flood, it's not a town assessment.
Oh, okay.
So I would assume that your house is under assessed by the town. If you went
I
through the
hope so.
buyout process, you would get market value on a town assessment.
Do we happen to know what that market value was?
Probably a commercial real estate agent would be a good.
We
Commercial
don't,
assessment.
we don't,
I
the simple answer is we don't.
Maybe that's maybe that's something we should know.
If you take the assessment.
If I had to guess, I would
divided
vote.
by the CLA, you get 2.5. If the CLA is correct.
So it's 2.5 million if CLA is good.
Let's hope it's appraised correctly to begin with.
Correct, yeah, there's a lot of variables.
There's
there, but it's
the
good.
if, right?
Yeah,
It's appraised at 1.2.
I thought it was 1.7, but that's right.
It does-
Yeah,
I
Either
thought it was
way,
in the lister card.
I think we're going down a rabbit hole.
right,
The question that we have to answer tonight. Is, are we gonna support that motion? The motion is to accept. On this, that if there are things that come up in the future, we could back at. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed?
Present.
How did you vote, Duncan?
Aye.
Alright, the ayes have it.
that seems like a cop.
Like a Christmas present?
And then the cop, huh? They do it in the House and Senate all the time in Washington.
You could cop out there.
Hang on.
Yeah, well,
For public record, February the 3rd at 7 PM, Mike turned into a Democrat.
you have to explain.
It's
No, no.
Everybody on this board.
No, please don't.
Are
We
you
do
so
not.
short-sighted, you don't
do
get what I'm driving at?
Please
It
don't.
means that I don't have any problem with Pomeroy and their property. I just have a problem with this whole process with the brownfield. So it's just, and I'm just showing them I'm voting present. I'm not voting for them or against them.
I'll tell them.
So
You feel.
it doesn't take rocket science to figure that out.
Next item up, clerk treasurer report. Rosemary, the floor is yours. Are you present?
I'm present.
Just barely.
Are you accounted for?
This must be the new word now, present.
It might be tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
Did you have some fair time?
Yeah, passed out a budget status report. Date, we're at 56.69% of budget.
Seems like right on target.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Anything stand out to you, Rosemary, that you should be aware of?
I think it's got all this, on the budget. Of course, once
What do
mud
you
season
think?
happens,
Yeah.
we'll have a better,
It's swayed quite a bit.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, those ditches are sucking the cars in, holy cow.
It should make mud season easier, too.
I guess so.
And the last two pages are those new funds that I set up for the industrial park, riverbank stabilization and the library grants.
The what did you say, Seth?
New funds,
High interest accounts?
these is accounting funds, not. So you know how much we spent on those portions of the budget, are non-budget, they're non-budget items.
Okay,
Okay.
I want you to know, I'm talking to the Secretary of State tomorrow,
Okay,
because I want her to do trainings for town investment. For a paycheck, didn't you?
Any board members have anything they want to say? I would like to commend the Historic Society. They're like 400% on their donations as far as I know, and I think that's awesome.
yeah, they do once, they just did about it.
It's a small number, but it's effort and
The
And
percent looks really good though.
It sure does.
hey, they're out pacing their goal.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And the loan documents have been executed by Mike with the new general store last week, and he has his money. And the town report proof came back, and I approved that, and it's at the printer. Should be mailed out sometime by the end of next.
Oh, did you run it through spell check?
That doesn't always pick everything. And the ballots are at the printer, and I approved that proof today, and we should have our ballots by the 12th.
So people can start early voting?
Mhm.
Well. Nice. Not quite 45 days, but it's.
Well, we have to have them posted by the 12th.
Okay.
We hopefully will get them earlier. We'll see.
Well, that would be good, it would be good information that we could put it out in front porch forum to say, early voting is happening. You know, maybe ask somebody, ask Thomas to put it on front porch forum. When you have the ballots, then people can come in and vote.
We'll put a sign out outside probably.
I know, but front porch forum is gonna reach more people than drive by.
You want me to do that, or do?
Facebook.
Yeah, when they get.
And Facebook and town website and,
People have started requesting.
people on vote.
Just some sort of communication.
Yeah.
Anything else, Rosemary?
So.
Well, thank you very much.
I feel bad for you, Doc.
Sorry.
Next item up is the road foreman report. I believe the select board has received all of that.
You want to go over the clerk treasurer planning?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought that was down in our regular meeting. I didn't pick up on that. The clerk treasurer planning is really for the board. We are gonna have 30 days from town meeting if the voters approve on a one clerk and treasurer. I think a job description needs to be put together and
I think Tom, a sample, one sample for each position in the packet.
is there a sample in the packet?
Yes.
So we have the auditor question on there as well. Is that a similar transition?
Yeah.
Can we find that out before our next
Yeah.
meeting?
And I think we need to replace it with a. What's interesting is I don't know that there's a if you eliminate the role of auditor, is there? I don't know that it's 30 days to get a contract with an auditing firm. It might
We
be,
already have a contract.
yeah, so we might already be in compliance. It might be you need to have an audit every 3 years or something. I don't know what that is, but something
I think you have to have it every year,
Every year.
every year.
every year. But we should be prepared to have that information because somebody's gonna ask the question to tender.
Treasurer. Would you, Tom, work on job description and offer a letter that we would approve?
I think we would make the offer letter. And yeah, there's a job description in this packet. It's homework for us to look at.
And we could find more samples too.
Yeah, I'm sure there are other towns that have gone through this that we could.
Yeah, that's my just quick research this afternoon.
I guess the question is, do you want, does the board want to do that, or do you want Rosemary to do that? me to do that, or if Rosemary and I work together? How do you want to get that job description put together?
How's the board feel? I think Peter's already,
I feel comfortable with these two putting one together and then.
when we look it over.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it has to be reviewed and approved by the select board.
Right, but the draft,
Yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable having.
I'd like to get it to you guys for the next meeting in February, so then we have another meeting for edits before town meeting.
right,
Yeah.
Before town meeting.
so it sounds like general consensus from the board. I don't think we really need a motion for that, we'll need to motion to approve the job description.
And we'll definitely need, a copy of the state statute, because somebody is also gonna ask that question. But, we need to be prepared, not just have dumb looks on our face, but to be able to answer the question.
Certainly,
Okay.
I think that's the big one for planning. After this town meeting.
Yeah, kind of.
Here's like 2 minutes ago.
We approved it and talked about
Brownfield in there.
and parking, all of those things.
Why are you putting your coat back on? for?
The item became forward on.
I know, but I figured you'd stay here and give some of your expertise on a number of things.
Are we ready?
You can leave, right?
You don't have to.
I'm just kidding.
Is there anything else?
You came out on a coming night, you might as well stay here for a few minutes.
Is there anything else to cover under town clerk, treasurer, planning? Thank you for catching it. Next up, vote foreman report. I believe Tom had sent out an email today about overtime hours. We might need to approve additional ones.
Yeah. The highest right now is 162, but it looks like there's probably gonna be about 10 hours this week. Today- Yeah, today's going, and then there's, we're looking at Thursday and Saturday again. So, we're just getting closer, and I wanted you guys to be aware of it, so in case they go over before notifying. And, you can get there in a hurry, so just have it on your mind, have it on your radar.
You're talking the whole highway department.
Highway
Right.
department, and then specific to Jason and his agreement with the select board, he needs to get permission at 200 hours.
Right.
So it's really Jason's coming to you,
So is your recommendation
just to.
that we address that at the next meeting or we address it tonight?
I think we probably wait to the next meeting, but I think going back to the budget, I think because we're looking at Jason was surprised at the level of frost in the ground. Would indicate a hard mud season, which means more overtime. And so just to have this in your mind as we're heading into mud season, it's likely there's probability we're gonna go over on overtime. It also means higher gravel, and in his report, he put sand and salt. He didn't say what those numbers meant, but we're chewing through our sand and salt faster than expected. So we have, we've got to be watching those, and we might have to make some actions. He keeps the roads pretty perfect, and so at some point you might need to say, okay, nothing less, don't go out anything less than 2 inches and do a public service announcement or something. But just be prepared, you might have to make some decisions as we get closer to those end of the year.
Sand is over half, salt is under half. But still. Okay.
Hopefully, we're more than halfway through winter.
By 2 days, right? I think Sunday was Veronic's Day.
It was,
Yeah.
you're supposed to have half your wood pile, right? But I think that's old information.
Pre-climate change.
With regard to the overtime stuff, and maybe you guys that worked on the union contract can help me out here. Is there anything preventing Jason as Public Works Director from saying, if he calls the guys in, at whatever o'clock, go home at noon, or, if he calls them in on the weekend, go home on Friday.
I,
Don't think so.
you're asking for a dangerous thing here. Cause it's my memory. But in the union contract, it spells out regular work week for summer and regular work week for winter. Define set hours, and it says anything outside that's overtime, so I would say there is something preventing, but. I would like somebody to check that.
Jason and I did talk about that this morning, about how to, opportunities to try to reduce overtime. And I think ours is looser than the village crews, but we do have to be mindful of those set hours. Maybe, and I think one of the solutions might be, like tonight, we're gonna get snow, maybe they go out, let it build up to 3 inches, go out at 10 p.m. And then go back out, and they'll hit their whole route before the morning commute, and is there a way, instead of doing 2 routes tonight, could we do 1 route in overtime and then 1 route? In regular hours, but that might take select board intervention, that he is working on ideas, but it's gonna take you guys to, because you're gonna get complaints, whatever changes you make, the roads aren't gonna be as good as they were.
So. Can you work with Jason and come back with 3 possible solutions by our next meeting and your 1 recommended solution, and the board can decide what to do? Is the board comfortable with that?
Tom, do you have a sense of what 10 overtime hours cost? Full road crew goes 10 hours.
A gajillion dollars.
I know it's kitchen.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I'm just thinking about our budget
it's like $2,500 in labor, right?
per hour,
For 10 hours.
for 10 hours.
And then you're looking at truck time on top of that, so that's another 700. Yeah, so probably somewhere between 3,500 to 4,000 with overtime, with retirement and. The additional,
Yeah.
Have you bought the sand yet?
Oh,
yeah, so it's,
It's $300 a load, and we go for 3 per route,
what's the route?
give or take.
What's the route take
it's,
as far as time?
route is,
I feel like 4 hours in there.
yeah, I was
less.
gonna say 2, maybe it's 4 hours. Because they started 3:30, yes, it's 4 hours, because they started 3:30 and they hit the parking lot here just before 7:30 for their last stop.
I mean, I don't wanna sound like a penny pincher, but
That's okay, I'm with you.
we have, we have a target for the number of overtime hours that we're gonna try and budget for. And I know from experience that other towns are doing that at or less than, our target, so. I'd love to see us try and hit the target if we can possibly figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think,
Come in under the target.
Yeah,
Well, that would be ideal, but if we, I hate to be in the position of talking about, it seems like every year where, mud season comes on us and it's like, you gotta talk about more overtime, because they're gonna hit it.
in mud season,
Mud
as an
season.
example, we could just say no overtime. And then they deal with the roads when they deal with it, because whether it gets speed up at 7 a.m. or whether it's speed up at 5 p.m., it's still be that. Whereas snow is much more dangerous travel.
Yeah, some might argue that mud season can be dangerous
Yeah.
too, but,
Yeah.
but
We
I
also
mean,
don't need to set the expectation that people need to be able to drive 60 miles an hour back road.
Yeah.
I did find some example policies where some towns have policies where nothing, and it's like for public know that nothing under 2 inches gets plowed until the next workout.
Maybe that's something to look at this summer, I think.
Yeah.
We need some possible solutions in 2 weeks.
yeah, to be able to manage our overtime.
yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Again, I really appreciate the work that the guys do, and, roads are really good, and, that needs to be recognized in this discussion, but
They are
it's
really,
also expensive.
yeah, I mean, we cross down lines and it's almost night and day difference. If they do a great job, but that's the price.
I will say that it has improved in the last few years dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
certainly.
But
It's improved dramatically in the last few years.
The quality is there.
Yes, the quality is there.
One last thing under the road foreman's report, I talked with Jason today. And I don't think this is gonna come up for a little while, but with the lead time on trucks being a year and a half, I might need to. The next board might need to talk about ordering one early for our 26 replacement, but that's just a heads up, so. Nothing to actually go on. Okay. Next up. Library relocation. Tom, you can take that away.
So we put out an RFP for the clerk of the works, and we had no bids returned. So I'm gonna ask the board permission to nothing. And so it was a short turnaround, but I would like to ask the board permission to extend it for 2 more weeks. And to reach out a little further and follow up with those that showed interest but didn't submit.
No, good.
Yeah, I think we should.
Well, I'll make a motion that we extend the RFP period for the clerk of works for the Johnson Public Library relocation. Till date, what, 2 weeks from now, today is the third, so the 17th.
Should do.
We do the 14th, so that way we have a weekend to look at.
The 17th is, I don't care, 2 weeks is the 17th.
Okay.
Is there anything in the RFP that we should or need to change?
That's why I want to reach out to the vendor who is most interested and just say, why aren't you interested in, what changed your mind, Or maybe it was just time, I don't know. There was an email saying they would have something to us by Thursday and nothing arrived. So I put a copy of the RFP in the packet to look at. It was pretty clear. And it was based off of another model for a $2.3 million job, which is similar. So I think just getting it out and probably just more pushing harder to companies that do construction consulting.
Michael and I are gonna fix Scrivener Bridge and we'll take this on too.
All right,
That's
Mike
fun.
seconded the motion on it, in case you didn't catch that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and the ayes have it. Now, do you want to explain the staple time?
Finance. So, the next is the show and tell for the architectural drawings. The committee met last Wednesday. They're stapled, so you can look at them, that was intentional. And go ahead, which
Doesn't even look like our.
isn't that so cool? So the left side of the building is the historical library, the right side is the additions with an entrance. And it's designed to be flip-flop, so we're still working on the parking area, although today the engineer sent out a site plan that would keep the building outside the floodplain, which would prevent the need for a floodplain permit. So that's pretty exciting. It just kind of frees up, means we're in compliance, even though the building's elevated, if we add any fill in that 100-year floodplain, it sets off certain triggers. And so by staying out of that, it just keeps things cleaner.
But we're still elevating.
Still elevating,
Foolish not to elevate.
we're elevating 2 to 3 feet above the 500-year floodplain.
That's the main floor.
Correct. And there's gonna be no basement.
There's going to be a crawl space under the old, over the historic structure. Mainly for the building mover to get in and get out. And then also for access to plumbing. It's just a lot more affordable to do the plumbing from underneath than it is to set it in the concrete slab.
All right, you need a place for Vermont.
That's right where they go, that's running the set like that.
So if we bring the elevation up with fill. Then the foundation wall is on top of that,
Yeah,
and that's 4 feet.
I think it's 4 feet now off the ground, right?
So we would be 6 feet above
Um,
500 years.
I think, well, 2 feet. Yeah,
The main floor.
the main floor would be, if we raise it 4 feet, we would be 2 feet above. 2.4 feet.
So walk me through this. We bring in 2 to 3 feet of fill.
We dig a hole down deep enough for the dollies to roll into. And so we're only digging a hole like 2 or 3 feet deep. The building is on dollies that are about 5 feet high, so, and then you have 2 feet of steel. So you're gonna have, this building is 7 feet in the air. So we have to dig a hole. That's gonna be 2 or 3 feet down, and it's gonna ramp into. Then they're gonna, while it's sitting in that hole, they're gonna put 4 footing. And then 4 up to the building, leaving pockets around the steel. They pull the steel out, they pull the dollies out. And then they pour the walls, pour your pockets. Then you put fill in around that foundation, your frost wall, if you will. So the first.
How do they fill the ramp hole?
How do they fill the ramp hole? They use a special fill called ramp fill.
I shouldn't be clear the words. You dig a hole, ramp, you
Yeah.
go down in,
Yeah,
you drop your building. You pour a 4-foot wall
yeah,
with pockets for the steel beams.
yeah.
You lower slowly the steel beams, the building's sitting on the foundation. You gotta roll those over that.
I think the dollies actually come out first and it sits on cribbing. But yes.
Yeah.
And then you take the cribbing and steel out. Yeah.
Okay,
Thing to do is just watch the process.
That's.
okay, and we're not gonna, there's gonna be no slab at all anywhere then.
Under the new addition in the back, or the right side of this drawing will be a slab on an elevated.
Okay,
Because
because I'm looking at these basement windows wondering what.
This drawing was conceptual, that came to the meeting, and that meeting was to decide, do we
Or was it that?
oh yeah. For the rest of the board, I think I sent that quick overview, but
Yeah.
we had to decide whether or not we want a basement or not, and how do we do that, and the decision was no basement, let's not risk it. And so those windows are gonna go away.
Thank you. All right.
Anything else from the board? Regard to the library?
Yeah. I hesitate to even bring up, but I have 2 things to bring up. One is, Tom, you sent out a while ago an amendment to the state statute relating to this act number S-220, I guess, with regard to libraries, and a lot of it has to do with, access to books and whatnot, but there's a couple things in there that I think are really appropriate for us to talk about as we think about this. So under the general powers, the trustees, managers, or directors shall, and I'm going to A1. Elect officers of the corporation from their number and have the control and management of the affairs, finances, and property of the corporation. Further on, it says that the They shall establish a library budget for consideration by the legislative body, which is happening currently. But it also says that the board, meaning the library board of trustees, shall manage the public library and this is new language, and any property that shall come into the hands of the municipality by gift, purchase, device, or request for the use or benefit of the library. So we own the building over there, we own the lot over there, but this change to the statute to me says it's no longer the authority of this board to do that, it's the authority of the library board of trustees to manage manage the public library and any property that shall come into the hands of the municipality.
So, I guess I hear what you're saying, and I think a couple thoughts. One is, do you see this as maintaining a town library, where they bring a budget to the select board? Happening, but just the only part that you're thinking about changing is just the library board of trustees should manage this grant and construction, and the select board shouldn't have no role in that. Is that what you? But the ownership, but it's still going to be a town library at the end.
It's still gonna be a town library at the end. I just think the decisions about the management of the property and the building has now been taken out of the hands of the select board and is now fully in the hands of the library trustees.
I think that's my opinion as well, but it's a big decision to bring up to the board, so thank you for doing it.
Well, I don't think we have a choice. I don't think we have a choice. The statute says what it says.
Yeah.
It says shall.
And I think the process is kind of touchy for that reason, is, that's why the select board was invited to that meeting last Wednesday, because it's a trustee decision, but how do you do this?
The library trustees shall manage the library and any property that shall come into the hands of the municipality by gift, purchase, design, or request.
Can you clarify what you're driving at?
What I'm driving at is ultimately, we're sitting here looking at prints and plans that
We have no say over.
We have
I
no say.
think we really don't have any say over. I think it's ultimately a decision of the library board of trustees. What they want and how they want it.
I can throw a wrench into this if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wishing to. I think there is usually a preamble before the rule that shows the intent of what the writers were trying to get across. And we're getting hung up on the management. What is the definition of the management? Is that current day-to-day operations? Or is that actually building? Because you're building and you're moving. That could be considered outside the management role. The only way you're going to figure that out is go back to the people who wrote it in the preamble, see what their intent was. Shall means you have to do it, but the description of management can be day-to-day operations, financial operations. This, to me, is outside the ordinary management of the building and property.
Well, as much as I'd like to agree with you, I don't think that's the case.
Yep, it's a heavy decision, and I'm just thinking, whoever wrote this rule up, give them a call, see what the intent was, and what that definition actually means before you make a decision, without knowing that, it's gonna be maybe a good call, maybe a horrific bad call.
That's all true. At the end of the day, legislative intent is appropriate. It will be considered by a court of law, but at the end of the day, the court is gonna decide based on what the statute, the plain language of the statute.
Right.
Legislative intent will be a factor in that evaluation, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be based on the plain language of the statute.
But again, the word management can have different definitions.
How recent is that statute?
It's the one that Tom sent
It's
out.
the one that
maybe-
you sent out in December of last year, so I don't. I
So
don't
it's
remember
new,
when
it's
it's
new
done.
statute.
It's already in the budgets. Right,
It was when we were trying to draft the reserve article.
A lot of this statute has to do with. Making sure that patrons and students have access to. Books, you know, that they're not. Actions put out there to prohibit, people from. Looking at books, but a lot of it is sort of cleanup stuff. Related to, I mean, that statute was really old. Like 100 years old. So some of this stuff I think is clearly intended to. Try and fix some of those issues.
at the end of the day, this is. Kind of a, I don't wanna call it a sneak peek, but. Presentation of preliminary drawings. Is it gonna? Understanding that. We need some clarity.
Well, the next
Are you trying to say that the library trustee should be managing the grant? It's still fine with the town managing the grant and getting pictures and saying. Sure.
I'm fine with anything that wants to be done. I'm raising the issue that I think at the end of the day is something the library trustees ought to think about. Is this statute's out there. And to me, there's always been kind of a, yin yang pull push between the town owning the building and the land. To me, this says, doesn't matter what happened in the past, now the library owns the building for library purposes. And they get to manage the building and property that comes into the possession of the town by gift, bequest, donation, whatever. And this, the original building was donated to the town by the Orient Fund. The building and the land. I've never been able to figure out for sure whether that was. Whether they meant to give it to the town library, or they meant to give it to the town select board, or.
Well, I think it was a financial thing, because the Orient Club didn't have, their membership had dropped off.
I get that,
Yeah,
I get
Yeah.
that, but was it intentional on their part? To give it to the town as opposed to because there was a library board of trustees established.
Yeah.
They could just as easily have.
Yeah.
Donated the property to the Johnson Public Library
Mhm.
as opposed to the town of Johnson. Which is,
So we might have to. Repeat this when the project's completed.
I raised the issue because I think it's something that everybody ought to be thinking about and be cognizant of. I'm not entirely sure that. It ultimately is the select board's decision. To make all these decisions about the building and the property.
Then they should take care of their own bucket of orders then.
Well, it's all gonna come out of the grant, right?
Right.
So they ought to manage the whole thing, if it's theirs.
Again, I'm not trying to throw a wrench into the works of, how.
Well, we could just absolve ourselves of any more responsibility and let the library take care of themselves.
You could, I mean, I don't.
Outside of the budget that has to come before the select board.
I don't want to throw the library
Right, and right
trustees
now-
under the bus.
Well, not necessarily throwing them under the bus, then they'd have
We-
autonomy.
Get back on track here.
Yeah. You want me to pull the board real quick, that one? Peter,
What does the library board of trustees want to do? Are you happy? Proceeding as we're kind of going? With this project?
Well, we honestly have not talked about it, but I have always kind of viewed us as a team. We're all kind of on the side of the library, and we want to do what's best for the interests of the town library. The library that benefits the town.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if we say it's all your baby, then we get Tom. And you probably like having Tom. Okay,
Shared, right?
no, we won't share you, they'll pay you.
Tom is a crucial part of this project.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep going the way we are,
Yeah,
for the time being. After when we start to run into cost overruns, which we will, then the building is yours.
I mean, it does, there's a question,
Yeah.
who should the deed be made up to?
That's right.
When we get the deed,
Yeah, I was
From
wondering
the
what's the
school
deed of
district.
land once the building's moved, but I
Yeah.
think that's. Not to throw a wrench at your wrench, not a tonight answer. Something that we should be cognizant of that will come back.
and if the deed comes to the town could also always deed it to the library.
Certainly.
But if I were a library trustee, I would talk to my attorney and get to the bottom of that statute.
And you guys should have the discussion at
Yeah.
your board level.
Yeah. I will bring it up at our next
Do you
meeting.
wanna own this or not?
I think also.
I can get away from the town I would.
You know, what, I think the select board needs to be clear what that means too, like. They're owning it, that's true, it doesn't matter really who owns it, what matters is they're still coming before you with a budget to say. We have to raise $25,000 in taxes for a new roof, whether they own it. Or the town owns it, it's like the process doesn't change, it's just the name on the deed, right? Like, we're following the proper process for budgeting, and I think that's what matters most, is the taxpayers' dollars are in control of the select board, and other dollars that come into the library are not in control of the select board, and I think that's really the clarity that's what I see as the clarity that law provides.
Well, there's something in autonomous organization too.
You said you had two things for the library?
The
The
second
first
one,
one was a doozy, so
Yeah,
if you're
okay.
topping that, we might be.
well, I don't know if I'm talking it or not, but the site plan. Tom's gonna roll his eyes when I say this, but I submitted some information to Mumley about the existence of the FEMA floodplain maps. And I guess the reason I'm bringing it up again is I feel strongly about it. I am really reluctant to see a site plan that says right on the site plan, here's a line, and that's the 100-year floodplain line. Because it's not. The FEMA flood maps do not delineate the flood zone on that property at all. They sent out copies to everybody. I don't know if anybody looked at it, but they do not delineate the map. So what Mumley has done by Tyler's own admission in his email response is they have interpolated the data from the 87 floodplain maps with more current elevational data. And you know what interpolate means?
Yeah.
It basically means you take this set of data and this set of data and you try and put them together so that they make some sort of sense. Okay. So, while I get that, and I understand that according to their data, their elevation lines that they're showing on the site plan are more accurate, they may or may not be, because it's actually taken from LiDAR, basically. And my understanding is LiDAR has a deviation of anywhere from 4 inches to 12 inches.
It was done by, we had a surveyor go out there, and so I think it's 2 centimeters. As Mark Day went out there and on site, and so those lines didn't come from LiDAR, but they actually showed LiDAR was slightly incorrect too, because you can see the LiDAR. The lines that Mark Day put on is 100-year, 500-year, and then there's this gray area that they kind of cross over on the left side of the map, and that. We had a surveyor do actual elevations for that certificate of elevation. And that's the difference, and so LiDAR maps had one thing, the FEMA maps are another thing, and then we had a surveyor go out and say, we're so close, we have to make sure we're not in your floodplain, and that's when we came up with the site plan.
I get that, I understand that. My concern is that they are extrapolating or interpolating the data from the elevation from the FEMA maps, which are the approved maps. Our zoning bylaw says FEMA maps are the maps, they're the official map. So they're basically saying, 506 on this side is the equivalent of 506 on the other side, which is not officially the case.
Even if it's not official, the data,
Let me continue. So the reason I'm concerned about that is a couple fold. One is we did not end up with water on that site in 95 or 2023. So neither the 100-year nor the 500-year flood were on that property at any point in time. So when the new FEMA maps come out, which sometime they'll come out.
In our lifetime
Do
possibly.
you trust me?
Well, I don't know that I do or I don't, but when they come out, they will be the official maps.
I understand that, Duncan, but to Tom's point, with the survey that was done, they added another foot on top of that, if I'm not mistaken.
the surveyor's lines, if you look at the FEMA maps versus what we're building against, we're actually building far more conservative. So in the event that flooding gets worse, we're conservative now to protect future infrastructure.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is whether or not we should even have a site plan that shows an elevation of X as being the defined flood zone boundary, because it's, in my opinion, it's not.
And,
The
but
FEMA maps define that.
am I to gather, in your opinion, actually is lower than what we're building to? We're being more. All things equal, what you're arguing is the inaccuracy is probably a lower elevation than
Yes,
what we're building to and showing.
yes.
Okay,
So I think, all things being equal, we should never see a FEMA map that shows floodplain on Legion Field.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So if you want me to have monthly pull those lines?
Well, I didn't hear back from him. I proposed to Tyler just a question. Would you be open to the idea of a note or a disclaimer, something to the effect of the delineation of the floodplain elevations on this site plan are interpolations of data from the 87 FEMA firm maps and the current elevation data. The actual 1987 firm maps do not depict the 100 or 500-year flood zones for any parcel depicted on the site plan.
Scott, do you have an opinion on this? Mr. Flood?
You have to go by the rule. And the LiDAR is not part of the rule. So when the zoning paperwork comes to me, I don't care about that. It's not in the rule, like you had said, it's based on what the rule was passed.
Right, but given where we're building, it wouldn't go through the flood zoning administrator, right? It's not on burn maps.
Right.
It's not, if it's not on this map,
So if,
you wouldn't look at it.
if Tyler's okay with that disclaimer, we can move on.
That'd work for me. I mean, and again, he didn't respond today, so I don't know how he feels about it, but he's an engineer
Yeah,
and, he may have strong feelings about it one way or the other.
The
But
project doesn't, I mean, to be clear, the project doesn't change, the building's gonna look.
I
the
don't
same.
think there was any request for the project to change.
Yeah.
I think it was just lines on the map, clarification on what they were drawn from.
And honestly, part of my concern is, and I'm putting it right out here in public, if we are showing a site plan that shows a floodplain and we're building on a piece of land that shows floodplain, I think that's bad policy,
Which hasn't flooded and.
which
It doesn't really make any difference, it's on an official map, says it's a floodplain.
I know, but
But they're.
But it's not on an official
I know.
map. as floodplain.
okay, so I see where you're going, Duncan, and I think it's a smart idea. This is not on any floodplain maps,
Not currently.
not currently, then let's not identify it as being in a flood.
Just take it off the site plan,
Take it off the site plan.
we're moving forward as planned.
But let's be
there was no
conservative as you are, keeping the building up.
Absolutely,
you know.
yeah, absolutely. I would plan as if it's gonna flood to the 500-year flood.
But we don't know where it is.
Build it 2 feet above that elevation. That's, that makes all kinds of sense.
I was the second to get there, but I think the board follows, and do you follow what he's saying, Tom? Okay. Does the library have anything to add for the library relocation?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Speak now or forever show up in 2 weeks.
No. I think we're good.
Is Peter doing all right? Liaison?
Yeah.
So we can really. him.
Yeah.
I have nothing but praise.
We could demote you into dog or.
Or we could double down.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to move on to the library subject?
Okay.
Thank you for the preliminary drawing stuff. I appreciate it.
Looks very exciting.
It is.
It looks, it
next-
looks way more expensive than.
One quick question, I'm assuming that did not conform with Thornton's code. And that this proposal will have to go before the DRB for approval.
From
There
there.
are, yes, and that's already been declared, we will be preparing a variance under VSA 24 VSA 4469 D, I believe, and that's from that it's we're not able to build to conformity because of the nature of moving the building. The distance from the sidewalk to the front of the building has to be within 4 feet if you are to meet form-based code, but in this case, that's not possible by having to ramp down. And so that's why the front of the building is going to be dictated by that need of the building where it's going to land. And then the breaks in the building, there were some drawings that came up today that had no breaks to meet form-based code. So we're going to try to meet form-based code to the best extent possible in accordance with VSA 24 VSA, but we are going to have to get a variance.
When we had the discussions remember when Paul was in talking about whether we should modify the form-based code for flood mitigation type stuff.
This would solve it.
He came up with a concept that I'm not 100% sure I agree with, but it didn't go through a variance process. It allowed the DRB, he found the DRB already had the ability to approve something that didn't strictly meet the code.
Yeah.
I would advise you to at least look at that rather than the variance.
Yeah, I look at, to me, the DRB can only give variances on very specific statutorial reasons. And you have to give an argue,
It's really hard to meet those.
and I think we can actually, two of them, we can talk about that at the time. And I think I don't like having gray area, giving the DRB gray area without clear reasons. For, it is not a wise choice, so you have to stick with statute. Or define the reasons, but clear, so that you're either meeting it or you're not.
Points out the reason that I think that we should modify the DRB. Or flood mitigation standards.
Anything on the industrial park, Tom?
Nothing new, they're meeting Wednesday, the engineer had some deadlines due February 1st, and the industrial park is gonna be, there's a group of think tank, if you will, moving that forward, and they're meeting Wednesday to review those, items that are coming forward.
Is Randall in those meetings?
Absolutely, I don't know, he goes. Yeah, Not just yet, I just get the emails.
All right. Next up is rescheduling our next meeting. When's the board want to meet? The 17th.
Well, March 12th.
Sounds oddly specific.
Let's see, does that date have a particular?
What about
meaning for
March
you?
5th? Are you good with that? We're meeting on the 5th anyways, aren't we?
Yeah. No, fifth anyway.
Do it the 18th.
Yeah.
That's the Tuesday.
Rest of the board members okay with that? Does that work for you?
The 18th. Yeah.
Okay, March, whatever, make a note.
You just have to suck it up.
more meetings.
Yeah, now everybody can go to the high school annual meeting. On the 17th.
Oh, phew, good thinking.
I am rearing excited about that. We're still good with 6:30. All right. I'm putting that in. Next item up, can you take on the brick grant application request, Tom?
Yes, so this is, there's a lot of unknowns, as you probably picked up in the packet. This grant, this came out, I spoke with VMs today about this. So this came about for projects that we applied for through HMVP, but were not granted. These are for flood mitigation measures. And there were a few projects, there was, Brook Farm, floodplain restoration, and these are all scoping. This is just a study to pay an engineer to scope. There was Vermont Route 15 and Hogback Road, Vermont floodplain restoration. I'm not fully sure, what that looks like. The Brook Route 15 bridge, which is by Hogback there. The Scrivener Bridge and the Lower Main Bridge here at the Guyan Crossing, and then one-way lane floodplain restoration. I met with LCPC and just kind of spoke about these. I asked them for some insight because it felt like this was outside of my capabilities to try to prioritize these for you guys. And quick summary, you can see some of the packet, but Brook Farm floodplain restoration was the only one that seemed viable at this time. The Route 15 Hogback Memorial, that touches infrastructure that we don't control. It's AOT, the Route 15 bridge at Hogback again, so we would be paying to scope a bridge that we don't have control over its replacement. And again, the Main Street Bridge is the same. Scrivener Bridge, we've already scoped twice, we don't need to do that again. The one-way lane project, that would include our material storage for the highway department. And it also, we're now doing the armoring along one-way lane, that USDA NRCS grant. So it seems like it would be a very complicated scoping project to scope something that's going to have new material, but you know, it just seems like it's off the table. So when I called today, Brian Eberhard is going to put together an email with his AOT contact, try to see if we can get AOT commitment. So say we scope something and they said, yeah, we have to raise Hogback, the bridge at Hogback Road 4 feet, you know, and then it wouldn't work as a dam to back up into the village. We need some commitment from AOT to say, yes, that's the right thing to do. And here, this, now we're gonna do that. Like if we own the infrastructure, we can do that, but we can't tell AOT what to do. But why are we gonna pay for something to have somebody? So these.
That's not an old bridge. They just redid Route 50. What are the chances that they're gonna?
Well, this is tricky, right? It just
That's
seems
not
like both of them.
Both of them,
Yeah.
actually.
And so that's a big problem, right? And so we're gonna try to start that conversation, or maybe the town becomes a fiduciary agent to look into that. But that maybe AOT will pay for that scoping study, you know, pay for our math, 25%.
It'd be really nice to know if that is actually valid. That bridge on 15 actually acts as a dam. If it causes flooding in our valley. That I would really like to know, you know, because there's a lot of hearsay out there that's a dam.
Yeah.
And that causes flooding in the village.
I think it's definitely a great. This is
That
what
that would be,
scoping study
that would be really
top,
interesting
right?
to know. I mean, it should be pretty easy. Can't somebody that's a surveyor with some satellite survey system go and say, okay, the bottom of that bridge is at 16.5 feet in the parking lot at the Grand Union, which dates me, is 15 feet. I'm just that would be really nice to know. Heck with the scoping study, let's find out if it actually is an issue.
Yeah. But we're doing research on infrastructure that we don't have the control to change.
Right.
And that's a challenge. I did get clarification that we are not eligible for the 10% match. Our population, it's only for towns with a population of less than 3,000, so we're automatically. And then the recent administration put a hold on disaster zones, the community disaster zones, so we no longer qualify for either possibility for 10%. 10%, so we're looking at a 25% match for these projects. And my next question to them was, okay, so we do a scoping study, what's the next step? Like, where's the follow-up funding for these projects? Once we establish that we want to do a project, how do we get funding for it? And he says, this is part of the Stafford Act, and this is annual, BRIC funding is annual, so we'd be able to apply to do the project under BRIC next year, if it continues. And the other option is if there's a disaster, there would be HMGP funding. And so I asked about that, how BRIC funding works, and he said you would be in competition with like a national pool for these projects, and so doesn't look great for this in the future. I mean, it's a maybe.
I mean, I need to be a FEMA.
Well, that's what I'm really, is hope. Those are questions that were asked today, and I think that should be cause for concern. Shell out $20,000, 25% match.
So your recommendation is what?
Well, I asked, so how do we get the best bang for the buck out of this? And he says, when you put this out for scoping, in the past for Scribner Bridge, we just did a scoping for like concepts. And he said, what you should do is, we do choose to do a scoping project. The best one here is probably the Football Farm Restoration Project. And we should do scoping for 100% design, cost estimated, and big package ready. So that way we have a shovel-ready project out of this grant. And then we can do funding for a shovel-ready project. It'll put you ahead of line because a shovel-ready project scores more points than a concept. He also suggested, I asked about, well, these projects are all downstream of Johnson. Are these going to benefit downtown Johnson, or are we doing this to help Cambridge? And he said, well, I can't answer that. I'm not an engineer, of course. But I asked him if we could approach Cambridge and say, hey, would you be willing to split the match with us? And so that way we can have have multiple towns coming together to work on, say, this Football Farm Restoration Project. That's also going to help their town. And he said, yes, and that would actually increase our scoring capability, that they'd like to see multiple projects that support multiple communities. My recommendation is that we wait and approach this on the 18th. We have until the 28th for the application and get more information. But I think what I'd like from you is direction. Do you want me to reach out to Cambridge? Do you want me to follow through on AOT? Or do you want to just say, no, we don't have the money in the budget, let's take a break? But the scoping was estimated around 60 to 80,000 for the Football Farm Restoration Project.
Our match would be
15 to 20,000. If we could work with Cambridge, it would be 7.5 to 10. 7.5 and 10 is a lot easier to swallow without having budgeted for it.
How's the board feel? We can swallow that in our grant matching for the file.
So, yeah, I think reaching out to Cambridge.
Do we think that's a good idea?
I'm okay with reaching out. I have real heartburn thinking that it's gonna show a huge benefit to Johnson, to the point where I'm going to kick in 20 grand.
So Tom's asking if he can reach out to Cambridge. I'm not hearing any objections to that. There might be objections to doing it. We don't have somebody else with us.
Why would Cambridge want you now?
Because this restoration project, it keeps water out of their village. Whereas say we were doing something in Hyde Park would actually help Johnson. If we wanted to blast Doghead Falls, that might have, that would help Hyde Park. So Hyde Park might come to us and say, hey, we want to do a project. This project in Johnson helps Hyde Park. So we'll pay your match to do this project because it's in your political boundaries. So here's an example. We say, hey, Cambridge, we're willing to do this to help you, but we want match. You pay the match. We'll put in the resources, do the grant administration, but we've got to pay the match. So it's kind of this way that we can work together with towns.
It's worth the question.
Yeah.
Outside the box, thank you.
That's gonna make that much of a difference for Cambridge.
If you get a no to 100% of the questions you never asked.
Operation in county government. I think that's anti-Vermont.
All right, thank you. Are we done with the brick item? Did you get your answer for tonight, Tom?
Yeah.
Next item up is the political sign policy. This is really just signatures. We did approve this at the last meeting. Tom has a signature copy.
Oh, Melissa Minka has a hand up.
I'm sorry, before you move on from the break, so was the decision to hold off to make a decision until the 17th?
18.
The 18th? So I would just need to confirm with the individual we're contracting with that there would be enough time for them to pull together an application for the 28th. So I'll just need to confirm that tomorrow.
Okay.
And Melissa, while you're here, we never got confirmation on like what role would LCPC be able to do with this project? Like, I know LCPC was copied on the application, on the notice of application. But what is the expectation of the town's role and what is the expectation of LCP in putting these projects forward?
So, depending on timing, LCPC, we can use our consultant to draft the application and submit it. And then if awarded, LCPC, if the select board so desires, can manage the project. Certainly the finances would have to go through the town. But we can help in securing an engineer and working through the process of scoping.
So these two, I mean, this project involves two private property owners.
So
As well.
Melissa did reach out and get confirmation from both Woodward Farm and MSI, and they were okay with moving forward.
They were,
Yeah. Probably have to give some formal agreement, but conceptually, yes.
Alrighty. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next item up. As I had said, it's signatures for the political sign policy, which we approved last meeting.
And they're over that way.
I believe
They're all over there.
Everybody fine.
Ms. Mayor already has it. Next item up is the beginning discussion of amending the dog ordinance. I do believe that ordinance amendments are defined in statute, and I do not have to memorize, but I think we have to have a very good one meeting. I think this is, like, none of the changes in my opinion are overly controversial. I think this is a question for the board. Do they want to stick with just these changes or kind of just relook at the whole ordinance and maybe change other sections? I don't care. The fees section, fines section. It's the same process whether you change one word or the entire document, right? But what are the board's wishes? We could ask Tom to proceed with ordinance adoption as presented, or we could say the fines should all be doubled.
I think you should do a deep word by word dive.
Keep that.
should what?
A deep dive. I wanted to do a deep word by word dive. Starting in late March.
Oh, he's a real joker.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Everything from Mark is March 5th and on. You're not gonna March 4th. It's the only day that actually is a command.
The Ides of March, beware the Ides of March.
I'll pull up, what I can do is I can pull up the LCP's model policy and see if there's any changes. And just,
Well, I'm just asking the board, do they wanna,
I'm peaceful with the changes that you have. I don't feel like we need to.
I think we should double the fines.
Where are the fines and penalties?
Right in there.
It's right in there.
It's right,
7 and 8.
there is, I mean, very minuscule things, like the page numbers need to be updated.
Yeah, I already did that in my draft.
Yeah, I figured you
The last page,
crossed that.
yeah, and that's some bold stuff.
Page 13 of 12, that's not possible.
The A lot of it was when I converted, when you convert from like PDF to Word. There was a lot of stuff that didn't go right.
How's the select board feel? It is changing an ordinance, which is gonna take a public hearing, form, yada, 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 so. We wanna think about it for 2 weeks and we come back with some marching orders for Tom.
I think you make a good point about the fee and fine structure. I don't think that's been changed in 20 years.
My only concern about that is recovery of dogs. And I think that if your fine structure is too high, you'll probably have more abandoned animals. I'm sure somebody's already put some thought into this, another town. But if the dog, you have to pay those fines plus any costs incurred. And so if you have to pay $300 for a dog that you didn't really want enough to keep inside the house, are you gonna pay $300, you know? And are we gonna deter people from covering their rent?
Devil's advocate. And I'm only doing this for fun.
Yeah.
If we quadruple the fines, maybe we would deter people from not taking care of their dogs.
Or owning dogs at all.
Right, and I'm not saying either opinion
Yeah.
is right or wrong, I'm just saying. It's 2024,
And not.
2025.
oh,
It's
goodness.
2025, God.
Yeah, see,
Jeez.
I'm in the second month of the year and I'm still making that.
So if I can just jump in, is it just for dogs? Or
It's
is
an
this
animal
domestic
control
pets?
ordinance, but
So it's
it
not
covers
specific to dogs?
Just dogs.
Yeah.
dog and wolf hybrids.
Okay, not cats, not peacocks? or
Nope.
anything?
No.
Because there's some nasty cats.
Yeah, and we're not allowed by statute to regulate them.
Really, just dogs.
Cats are not domestic animals.
They're not domesticated.
Everybody.
Well,
Thank you,
they're not
Scott.
considered domestic.
Um,
Figure, Scott.
So, hearing. Tom's thoughts on it,
I do think the fines and stuff should be
I just think double.
at least double. Really quadruple in town now.
Anything we can do to get money from poor people.
Well.
Not necessary.
Not all of these are gonna end up as. Impounded animals.
Yeah.
either. So, there's a waiver fee, and the waiver fee is generally half of the
It's exactly half.
fine. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but that's how this one was set up. So if you were smart. And you wanted to avoid paying that $300 fee, you'd pay the waiver fee and be done with it. Not wait till a dog gets picked up because it hasn't been licensed for. And impounded.
Just for clarity, even if we doubled them. From where they currently are, the $300 fee. Would be the fourth offense.
Yeah.
Not $300 out of the fee.
Yeah, and I fully understand that some people couldn't afford the first fee. And I guess we could. Absolutely.
Rising through my head. Fine. For people who don't pay the bills.
On the other hand, sometimes. People don't know about
So, to keep this moving. Do we want to amend the whole ordinance? I'm fine with Tom's wording. I waited on my thoughts on the fines and waiver fees. Going to pull the board on that. Peter, what do you want to do with fees?
I'd say leave them as they are.
Mark,
Leave them where they are.
I'm double.
Double.
it. How come I had to be last?
Sounds like.
You
that
could
was
have
by-
jumped in and said something.
That was
first.
almost by design.
Yeah. I'm okay with seeing them double. I mean,
Okay.
it's been 20 plus years.
So. We can go forward with the proper process for amending an ordinance. With your recommended changes and that additional change.
But I also asked that the board look at, just before the ordinance, there's a job description. We didn't have this before, but I wrote a job description up for the ACO. And I made a set of procedures and expectations. And what this does is, we had two scenarios within a year. That because the ordinance wasn't followed by an ACO, and we didn't have good act, good accountability measures, it cost us thousands of dollars. And so I think what this does is it just says, okay, if you want to be an ACO. These are the procedures you have to follow, and it just means that somebody can step in and intervene faster than what's been happened in the past, so we don't incur these several $1,000s worth of fees and fines.
You get ACO,
I would
failure to.
failure, correct, failure.
I totally agree that we should do this. I really did not have a chance to review this carefully, so could we
Yeah, homework.
address this as homework for?
Yeah,
The
I think,
header for the job description.
Yeah, the header for the job description needs to
Right
be
off the
changed.
bat.
right off the top.
you can tell me, but all three of them is, if we could look at all three of them together.
Can you email these out individually to the
Absolutely.
select board for homework in that way? You know, just separate from the whole packet.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're gonna find some more edits too.
Which isn't a big deal, but looking at them all three together, the ordinance has its own process, these could be adopted. Sooner.
But the procedures is, it's a good idea. And does this get into, the question I haven't looked at, does it get into like required posting? It's, you know, all that good stuff too, or?
What I did is I put, because of the posting requires more detail, I said, that you have to notify the ACO, or notify the town administrator for posting. So it kind of puts the town administrator in charge of that, and that sets those dates up. Rather than having the ACOs try to come into the office and get it online and get it to the newspaper and call the radio, it just puts it in the town administrator's hand. Okay, the ACO notifies that we have a dog that's likely, it needs to be posted. It makes their life a little, let them do what they do and let the town administrator do the bureaucracy that they do. That was kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. The only thing that I can remember is I think there's a disconnect between what the animal control ordinance calls for with regard to posting
And the state statute.
and the state statute. And I'd like them to be the same.
We'll do that, put that in the ordinance amendment.
Ideally, I think the ordinance should comply with,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but ours is actually more time. than the
yes,
State
I
statute.
believe that's correct.
Do you want less time or?
If it lines up with the state statute, there wouldn't be questions about
We
it.
created a relationship with the local vets. Now they're willing to come out and do care on site. They're willing to euthanize on site. It just makes. The process is so much cleaner right now and. We just have to know what those dates. So say there's a dog that can't be adopted. You know, call the vet and schedule an appointment 15 days out, knowing you can euthanize after 10, so there's a little buffer. And then, but it also gives us 5 days to. Cancel the appointment without messing up the vet schedule. So if we change that, we just have to change those other agreements that we have with the local organizations helping us out with this process.
I don't care which way it goes. I just think they should be consistent.
There was probably a reason why we made it longer, because we had it
Years ago,
years ago.
Did it end well?
No,
I think you've referenced that incident.
They didn't
in the
inquire.
past.
It was before my time.
yes, it wasn't before Becca's time.
Maybe it's worth referencing the state statute and acknowledging the extension, you know, at least referencing statute in the ordinance.
You know, generally, all things considered, I think it makes good legal sense to follow state statute. But, because then there's, you know, there's not a question of the state statute says this, but your ordinance allows this. You know, it's just your ordinance is consistent with the state statute, but that's just me.
Cleaning up dogs is really my goal, so I really appreciate this.
cleaning up after dogs?
Anything more on the animal control ordinance?
This actually brings, this was the addition to the agenda, is we have to deal with trash in this town. And it has to do with dogs. Is you go to Old Mill Park and you have a trash can that has 38,000 dog poos just leaning up against the side of it. And we have dog bag providers at Old Mill Park and at Vision Field, but there's no doggy bags. And I think at the next meeting, it would be great, whether the town wants to hire a new employee to pick up trash, whether they want to tell the Public Works Department they have to pick up trash, whether we want to hire the village to do it, because they're already picking up trash. I mean, I don't care what the answer is, but we have to do something. Whether we can't, it needs to be addressed. It looks really bad at Old Mill Park, and we have empty doggy bag. We're gonna have things out to say, here, take a bag, we ought to have it filled, and so. That's another thing that should be tied up and put to bed, that matches dogs. Yeah, pretty excited.
Mark, you're gonna be retiring off the board pretty soon. You like dogs, right?
I think the fence.
I would go there and pick this up.
responsible for that.
Right, those, man.
If we put a fence around the trash can, we could kind of throw it out.
Yeah,
Mark's gonna be a fence viewer pretty soon.
I'm gonna be ash tree. There's a lot of things I can.
I don't see any abandoned dogs in here.
Because we do not take abandoned dogs. We only take dogs running at large. It's very clear why we take dogs. So, which again, if ACO, if we had better oversight, of ACO, we would say.
No, but I mean. Running a loose dog, and if you can't find its
That's
owner,
what I feel.
No.
it should be given up to animals.
Yeah, well, that would be a surrendering dog, which we don't take.
No, but let's say a dog is just found loose and you can't find its owner.
So the town takes it, and the intent of the law is to protect the general public and livestock from dogs running at large.
I understand that.
And so if the ACO takes the dog, brings it to the kennel, they have 7 days to try to find the owner. They have 7 days to notify all the adoption agencies, and I've started a list of, BJ's actually done an enormous amount of work, it's really thinking. A list of all the agencies and their phone numbers. And so that way we have 7 days to actually call people, find the owner, find the adoption agency. And after 7 days, that dog goes to the adoption agency.
Got it.
Yep. And so that's why the
Adoption.
situation we just went through was extremely rare. It's
Then we had to
once
put it
every
in.
5 to 10 year situation. Usually they'll get to a place before that.
I just wanna make sure that. We just want to arbitrarily put down good dogs.
Correct. Yeah.
We'll put you on the.
As a kid, I never would have guessed that I'd ever be talking about this.
Let's have dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're lucky we haven't had a vicious dog here.
Yeah, in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the worst things. You ever been on one of those?
Wasn't there a select board member that was wishing for one? Yeah, I have.
Those are terrible.
Next item up, town meeting planning. So Tom had in his report. We got daycare lined up. Fifth and sixth grade class will assist with lunch. Does that mean they're doing lunch and Mark's not doing pizza?
No, I'm doing pizza, they're gonna show up and collect money.
Good man.
Well, they might have better food.
I'd be delighted to let them do it, but they're just not gonna pull it. They're gonna show up and collect the money, maybe
Mark's gonna leave as soon as there's a controversial thing.
carry some
Just
pizzas
tell
out.
me to go warm the pizza oven up.
The pizza oven will be spot.
Well, the meatloaf was the best deal years ago.
I know, I made meatloaf for years. You like it better than pizza? Think I made meatloaf last year too.
Yeah, you did.
Meatloaf and scalloped potatoes.
Yeah,
I don't remember
Carl
that.
made the scalloped potatoes.
Yeah.
So you have daycare lined up?
Daycare, we've got permission from the school, so the school's expecting us to use the gym, the library, and a classroom.
Are we getting in, usually? Is there employees that go over the day before, or is it select board members? It's mostly employees that all the chairs up.
Jason does that.
Is that all? Can you just verify it, make
Sure,
sure?
well, yeah.
Couple of years ago, I mean, the Boy Scouts did the Pledge of Allegiance for years and years and years, but last year they didn't do it. I don't know if that's because they weren't contacted, but.
We don't have a
So they
good,
come,
Did they do it last year?
no, they, actually they didn't know.
Last year, no.
and we tried to get a hold of them for other reasons throughout the year, and there's just not an active, I haven't found an active connection. I think if we.
So ask some military veterans if they'll lead it, then something.
Why don't we get our violin players this year to do that? Guys paying them better.
Who's that?
Are they even right?
Roland Clark, played violin in the morning, Gary Clark's son. I'll see if they're.
What about a fireworks show?
Indoor fireworks.
Good doesn't like fireworks.
In
He
all,
doesn't like.
in all honesty, are they not able to be contacted? Could we make an attempt? Are you asking for help to make an attempt to
So
contact them?
we've tried several times, especially for reasons at the mill house, to get a hold of them, and we've had no success.
Well, if you,
Did they do
have you,
the-
have you tried?
Did they do the
Dixie
flags?
See if he has
Last year,
contact.
No?
Yeah, I would call Dixie.
He was very, very big in scouts for a lot of years.
16.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
last
they-
one I knew was Kent Stearns. I don't-
Yeah,
what
that's
was
what
it?
I was.
I was wondering if Kent Stearns was, but Dick Seamay's probably has contacts.
You would think.
I'm not saying you'd have the answer, but maybe he has a number or a name.
Gary Underwood has something to do with the the returnables. What's his name? Gary Underwood.
I mean, you see the guy who picks up all the bottles.
Fire department?
Shelf.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah,
that,
fire
did
department.
we get to the bottom of the shelf lately?
We're talking about town meeting planning. Have you contacted committees to see if they want to set tables up? Let them know that there's,
I had few that
Based on that.
contacted us. One question I had for you guys is, I think. One of the coolest things that's happening in town is this Reimagine Johnson. We have these 5 subcommittees, but there's not great. Like, they're kind of off in their own bubbles. It would be great if we could reach out to them and say, do you want to have each committee set up a table to say what they're up to? We, you know,
I think that'd be a lovely idea. I don't know if that's something that is in their bailiwick, but.
if anybody,
Like to have posters and signs.
yeah, I don't know how to do it, but it'd be great to try to. It is part of the town. It is,
Oh, yeah.
maybe one table with all the chairs in it or something.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
or,
with a banner that says reimagine Vermont.
yeah.
Vermont,
Yeah.
Yeah.
could you reach out to the chairs or ask somebody to?
Alright.
You were asking for tasks, Tom. Seems like everything's delegated to you. We need to come up with a list for our topics for town meeting day. I'll probably email that out this week.
And we,
That way you
I'm
guys-
assuming we're gonna meet the February 3rd, the night before town meeting.
And it's not gonna be strictly a town meeting, but yes, almost completely.
You want me to take that off your plate there to try to find a Boy Scout?
I would love that.
I'll do that.
And would you get a name and a phone number for both Lydia and I?
For who?
Lydia, she usually gets the concerns and needs to reach out to find somebody, so if she had a contact,
Basically, if you sent it to one of them, they could communicate with each other and share
maybe.
it, right?
It could.
Instead of you having to call both.
I don't mind calling people.
It's technically feasible.
Yeah, I think so.
So you got the Boy
Yeah, I'll
Scouts,
take
see
care of
if
that.
that'll line up. I'll email out a list of potential items with whichever select board member will handle them. And then we could complain and swap.
So flesh that out for me. What does that mean?
It means like, if somebody's gonna get up and ask about ATVs. We're not gonna have 4 select board members that go to the mic, we'll just be, ours will be board representative for ATVs. If somebody gets up and asks about.
The town clerk treasurer.
Town clerk.
Town clerk,
That's gonna
treasurer,
be the big
that's-
one.
There's several different ones, somebody's gonna ask about paving. Probably that'll be a Tom thing, and a lot of them go to Tom, and
I think
We all
we should
get-
lead and then pass off.
if we're honest, the voters usually respect it. If we get lost, Rosemary will step up and say 2 words and we good.
It will be all good.
Got it.
The voters,
Thank you.
Eric always said the voters were fair, if you were honest. So,
Is Dave in the matter?
that's true.
Dave Williams?
I mean, he is the elected moderator. Have you, that was gonna be my question, have you contacted him? He asked for an agenda last year.
Is he running?
I sent him,
We didn't get the bunch of them that fell out this year. Usually, right now,
Well, there's not many on the ballot,
not anymore.
no more. The one little page, they have a page thing.
Yeah.
I've been forwarding him all the morning updates and asking him to review, and I haven't heard back from him, so I probably should.
Last year,
He
he
went to a
asked,
moderator class, so.
last year he asked for an agenda. Which,
That's the warning.
well, I believe Beth put together something that kind of had the
And I let him
pledge
know
of
that-
allegiance and then go into the warning, lunch will be at X, this will be at X.
He can do this in his sleep.
But he's
Yeah,
pushing
been-
80, isn't
He's
he?
been doing it for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
He's pushing 80.
I asked
Yeah,
him,
yeah,
to
yeah.
tell him about the noon, the
He
hard
may
stop
need
at noon for the state reps.
You're right.
Who has contacted the reps?
I have.
And they're good with that?
And they said they try to be there and.
And so,
Tell they don't even have to bother. They
That's
don't
the
wanna.
biggest commitment, yeah, I don't know whether Bailey will show up now. But Westman and Dan said
They usually ride together.
yeah.
Well, they have a place.
Just so you guys know, I have recently tried to follow up with all of them on the
Pilot,
pilot
yeah,
running stuff.
yeah, cause I fired off, I've been talking to Dan and he said he was. Talking to you about CLA stuff,
if our.
cause there was an extra $1 million floating around.
If our pilot goes back to the 2020 for actual to 497,000, our increase goes to less than 1%.
We would probably not allocate the
Yeah.
surplus the same way.
Absolutely.
That was
Yeah.
the case.
You start tearing down buildings. Start losing money.
What else?
Start-
What else do we have for town meeting day, Rosemary? You've been to more of these than I've been alive, so
I've been to more.
what are we missing? Yeah, you know, I'm not setting the bar very high.
You are kind of a snotty nosed kid, aren't you?
And,
I am.
but don't you forget, guys, I'm the second youngest guy on the board.
Who is
I'm the second youngest man on the board.
second youngest?
That's why we sit,
Really?
that's why we sit side by side.
Evan, me.
Peter, how old are you?
It's a personal
Or
question.
do you want to say?
Currently 71.
Okay, guess that makes me the third youngest.
Are we gonna do like hot coffee and cider or something?
Usually coffee, the recreation does coffee.
Yeah, but they rake me over the coals for what they charge per cup.
50
I
cents?
thought
You're gonna
recreation.
croak over 50 cents?
And I assume historical.
Back in my day, I
Society
remember how
is gonna
much
do-
do 50 cents.
That's my.
Yeah, well,
They're gonna do
Five.
pies, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been asked yet.
Who runs all, do they run this by you, or do they just show up and say, oh, we've always been here?
Several years ago, Kyle put, remember she had a big thing, when
Yeah,
it all started and kind of dissipated since then.
Does Isabel know? We don't really have.
You
a
think nothing is
committee.
like 4 bucks?
We don't really, Isabel's brand new. So we probably either A, ask Isabel about coffee, or B, with the historical association, be willing, you already were right there with tables.
Be great fundraising for rec.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who does their
She doesn't work on
concessions
Tuesdays.
at the games, it might be the person who does that.
Yeah, I mean, just because the committee's kind of small and she can't be there on Tuesdays, so
she can't come to town meeting.
I don't think so.
That's not right.
We should see if the library could do like cookies or something.
That would compete with the.
Pies, you don't wanna compete with those
You don't
old
wanna
folks,
compete with
they will throw you under the table.
Well, I'm just trying to think of something donation wise out of the box. If they got behind that sponsor a brick for the move thing, I think that they could. This sounds, I think, were you the one, was Tom or Mark the one that mentioned sponsor a brick? It was one of the two of you, I think it might have been you, Tom.
I'll take credit for
I'm not taking any credit for it, for the idea, but if they got behind it, I think they could raise quite a bit of money at town meeting. People are usually relatively generous.
Especially if you showed up with some.
This is
bricks
my
that are
strategy.
great.
One of the things that's gonna happen with this library project really soon is an estimator is gonna probably have to estimate the job before it goes to bid for the GC, right? So then you know about what it's gonna cost. Once you know, if, say we can't build it for 1.68, we have to raise 200,000 or something. That's when you sponsor a brick with a target. You need a goal. You don't just want to sponsor a brick to sponsor a brick. You want to sponsor a brick with like $200,000. But then you're going to every business, you're going to every person, and you're trying to hit that goal. So I think it's gonna come, but we need to know what you're shooting for.
Best,
We have to shoot.
best funding opportunity. Sponsor a book?
How, there's no way this is coming in. At the 1 point.
We don't.
No way. I was thinking the same thing.
I'm the wrong person to ask.
You can't even,
You
you
can't
can't
even-
even put a heating system in for $1.7 million.
Wrong person to ask. What else do we have for town meeting? Anybody? Fireworks severely cool.
Is the library gonna?
Can we have a fire? How about Legion Field maybe? Community gathering?
Oftentimes they have fire pits going. Is the library gonna have something there? This should be there. There should be a large schematic of the new library. In color. You know, this is our new library. This needs.
Yeah.
You know, they need a table, they need some books, some free books. If they don't have any, I'll give them some. Everybody has books to get ready.
But that color thing's gonna cost something.
Well, we have a color.
Yeah. Just make something that's 3 by 5.
We spent
How big will this print, Rosemary?
36.
Well,
It prints RD, 24x36.
yeah, it's 24 inches wide by as long as you want to go. Or 36 by 1.
Okay, so
That has to be colored though.
We have color.
they have color.
Do they have a colored thing of it already?
No, the
No,
architect.
no, I think, and his drawings are by hand. I think once, we're gonna get some stuff, once the concepts are ready, they'll make it.
Yeah,
Right now, we're still so basic.
Right.
clue them into that the library is actually brick and not libraries.
That's a lot of hand drawing.
But anyways, you know,
Anything else for town meeting? If not, we'll move on to the next one. Do we want a violinist?
yeah, it's rolling.
If they would come, that was super.
He's incredible.
Can we have a flower display and an arch up over the,
Oh, yeah.
like the entry door?
Is this a real thing?
No.
Well, we put out some
And be really welcoming. Maybe ask,
big flowers.
Yeah.
Last
Nice
year before.
arch over the chairs.
That's it.
Maybe the beautification committee could do something like that.
don't set me up for that. Yeah, maybe ask Marla if she could do flowers again.
Marla?
Yeah.
Do we want to put out any free, I'm gonna do a big blast this week to try to make people aware of open seats on committees. Town meeting, people start thinking about community involved, so it's a good time for people to volunteer recruitment. Is there any, do you guys have anything you can say about lunch, how you can bring a side?
Puts that in the morning. You know, but
How many people are
Putting
actually
on
in
front
town
porch
for?
right,
I wanna put it out there.
put it out there.
The
Pizza,
people in this room.
we're looking for, you know, salads and desserts to go with pizza.
So now you want to compete with the historic society. I was
The
just
historic society pulls their gig.
They're just gonna do dessert.
They do dessert at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, they'll be pretty well pied up. by the time.
Yeah.
hide out.
So,
And there's one cake.
Right.
yeah, that German.
Chocolate cake.
Yeah.
If it else is still to make it.
Oh, boy, that's a generous piece to.
All right, I guess we're moving on. This will come up at the next couple meetings. We've been
2
short.
more meetings before town meeting.
Old business.
Just have 2 left, Mark.
Never, it's never ending. We'll have an.
Anything under old business?
Emergency man to keep you off.
Yeah.
I'll do one thing, the town sewer service area, I contacted Alec Jones at LCPC and he told me that the mapping project had sort of been sidelined because of other priority projects, and I said, get back on it.
Yes.
Good for you.
Beautification MOU, are we leaving that on our old business?
Oh, that was.
No.
It's from a different town deal.
Sorry. Gotcha. Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session.
Who is for it now?
I'll move that we enter executive session,
Rosemary.
for employment evaluation under 1 VSA 313A3. Possible action needed.
Motion.